Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Gentlemen, welcome to memoQ Talks. Charles, how are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Jose, where are you and how are you?
I am home for a change in Pacifica near San Francisco.
Oh.
And it's a crispy Wednesday. So pretty good.
Awesome. Welcome. And Dieter, you're on the other side of the planet. Where are you?
I'm on the other side of the planet and underneath in soggy central coast of New South Wales, Australia.
What's going on with the floods over there?
So we've last 2-3 days. It's pretty crazy. We've had unprecedented amounts of precipitation, and people are being rescued off the tops of their houses. So yeah, it's pretty intense scene a little bit north of where I am here. Fortunately, I live in a house on a ridge, so I just always feel it's better to be a hill person than a valley person.
You're probably going to get these, what do they call them? Asylum seeker immigrants from the neighborhoods down below come knocking on your gate, man.
They're all welcome. They're all welcome. I have a huge deck. I've got a barbecue. I've got beers in the fridge. It's all good.
Charles, Jose, let's go. Let's go now. All right. Hey guys, I'm looking forward. This is Charles is the most often repeat guest on memoQ Talks. We're here to talk about, guess what? Vamos Juntos, but this time it's Vamos Juntos number 3 and maybe a preview of number 4. Vamos Juntos number 3 was in Mexico City. Is that right, Charles?
Yes, it was almost 2 months ago now. It's amazing. 2 months ago. Time flies. Mid-March, Mexico City.
Awesome. I'd like to get some, all your views from, first off, Mexico City. I've never been there. Dieter, what did you think?
Yeah, listen, it's pretty odd. I've traveled through Mexico City many times on my way to different places. And finally, Vamos Juntos offered the opportunity for me to plant myself in the city. And I was 100% blown away. I don't know why it took me so long to get out of the airport and poke my nose around. What an amazing city. And what a great location for that conference. And I'm really glad that it was there because,
what was one thing that stuck out in your mind? Like, oh my God, this is something I haven't seen or totally didn't expect.
Well, you go to a lot of big cities, right? I think that just the amount of amazing architecture, the access to, historical sites. It's one of the oldest cities really going, former Aztec capital, right? It's just amazing. The food scene is next level. I've got to say, wow. I went to a few restaurants that just blew my mind. And the historical area was phenomenal, where the markets are and just the downtown historical district. Just you could walk for hours and still not see 1/100th of what you need to see there. So
that's cool. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he goes down to Mexico, southern part, every year to this small city. And I'd never heard of it. And he started showing me the pictures and amazing architecture, like Euro Spanish kind of architecture.
Yeah.
But in this city, what they have done is they've routed all traffic underground. And so you don't see cars on the streets because it's all going under the city, and all the streets are all for pedestrians. And it was just like, it was so different from the typical kind of impression that North Americans, or I would say Americans, have of Mexico, which would be like border towns and things like that. So, it's good to hear about Mexico City. Jose, what were your thoughts? Had you been there before, or was this first time?
No, it was the first time. And I think that it was literally, I was blown away. Like Dieter said, I had the reason for me to not go to Mexico City. I live in California, so it's like fairly, it's not that far out on a flight. I think that it's just because there was a perception for the longest time that it was a dangerous place to go to. And, and mind you, there is like 22 million people in that city. So any place that has like 22 million people, got to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But I had like so many reassurances that no, it's like perfectly safe. You can go. It's like, I think that it's harder to get yourself in trouble than to have a grand time. Food was amazing. Culture was completely a surprise for me. I had no idea. They are, depending on the ranking you look at, they're in the top 3 cities in the world with the most museums.
Wow.
And I would say that I took a little bit of time. I was there for like 8 days or 9 days. I don't know. I got to see 7 museums, something like that. I had like a bunch of like cultural experiences, learning about the history of the city and why they hate the Spaniards like me so much. And they're only like now coming out of that. So much history, so much culture, so much like really tier 1 type of like capitals of the world with the most interesting things to see and do. And it dawned on me all of a sudden. So it went to my top 3 favorite places in the world.
Wow, top 3. That's impressive. What are the other 2?
So I like Tokyo very much, and I can have a special relationship with Barcelona.
Awesome. Yeah, I lived in Japan, Yokohama, which is right next to Tokyo, for 5 years, and it has a special place in my heart as well. Hey, Charles, so from Dieter and Jose here, Mexico City has 5 stars. Okay, so that's awesome. What was it like from an organizer's perspective to hold an event in Mexico City?
I was just thinking about what they all said about Mexico City, and it's that Denzel Washington movie, Man on Fire, where he's looking after Dakota Fanning and she's kidnapped or something. That's what put people off Mexico City. And, it's like if we didn't go to every American city because of all the violent movies, people would never go. But there is a perception that it's a highly violent place. And that was not the reality that we had at the conference. There were very few police around the hotel. It was just so tidy. Just many of the stereotypes of Latin America are more true in some downtown areas in the U.S. at the moment than you actually see in Latin America. I was just so impressed. I went to the Teotihuacan pyramids, which are outside the city. Oh, man, that was just out of this world. I'd never seen anything like that. And several people who attended also went to the Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo art museums and houses. I never had so many tacos in my life. Taco of every different flavor. A whole week of tacos. What an event. We move it around at Juntos from amazing locations that are not normally venues for translation, interpreting, and localization events. I don't know how many times, but there's certain conferences that have been held in Barcelona like 10 times now, the same conference, or in Dublin. And, maybe there's reasons behind that. It's not my intention to knock anybody. But Vamos Juntos has been held in Rio de Janeiro 3 years ago, Lima, Peru 2 years ago, and now Mexico City. And a lot of people said, well, why not Cancun? Well, we're not going to be at the pool having drinks, and we don't want to reinforce those stereotypes. And Cancun is more American than Mexican anyway. So we want to be, in Mexican culture, in Mexico City, which oddly enough is a place that a lot of people have not been to, even though it is a major city. So, fantastic. I was very, very pleased with the outcome.
Awesome. Well, I'm guessing since you live in Argentina for like most of your adult life, and Jose, I'm just guessing that I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you speak Spanish. Let me ask Dieter. Dieter, I think you speak a few words. One of the things that I thought about if I go to Vamos Juntos is like, okay, one, will I be able to get around? I'm pretty, well traveled and I feel comfortable in different places, but my Spanish is so poor that I'm like, would I be able to get around? And 2, is the program going to be in Spanish? And I didn't know that. So Dieter, what was your thoughts in terms of one, outside the program, outside of Vamos Juntos, and then inside of Vamos Juntos? Did you have any?
Yeah. It's a really good, point to make. I think a lot of people that don't travel to lots of international conferences may have that kind of a question, but attending Vamos Juntos, in a Latin American country as a non-Spanish speaker, that might present certain challenges for some of the side city exploration trips outside the event. But as far as the event itself is concerned, it's designed to be inclusive and accessible to a broad international audience, right? So I think, especially for English-speaking folks, zero issues. Spanish, this is the second Vamos Juntos event that I've attended. So I'm a repeat attendee, repeat offender.
We know that about you, Dieter.
you know how that goes, right? And Spanish is the dominant language in each of the host countries that Vamos Juntos hosts, but it includes a lot of folks from international location, participants from across our industry. English is widely used, and in the event itself, the keynotes, the panels, all the business discussions were held in English. And because there's so many folks that work in, the lucky thing for us is we work in the language industry. So, many of the folks that join and the participants at Vamos Juntos can help bridge any language gaps that exist, right? So
when you're out and about, as long as you've got your colleagues, friends with you, you're going to be you're going to be doing fine. Let me ask, because Charles, you run an LSP. Dieter, you're running a over the phone
taco van outside of Sydney.
Yeah, and over the phone interpretation platform. Buslingo and Jose, you're on the buy side. You're all coming from, you're looking for different things. Charles, how do you put together a program that, that is interesting to such a diverse audience?
That's a very good question. First of all, almost all of the presentations were in English. There were a couple in Spanish that had specific reasons why they were delivered in Spanish, but simultaneous interpreting was provided. We had a booth and everything. And we did have speakers from, all over Latin America and the Caribbean, the United States, Canada. Dieter, I don't even know where you're from, like Canadian, Australian. Everyone thinks you're German because you're a name.
That's it.
I
just keep them guessing. The witness relocation program keeps them guessing all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
They just move me around.
Yeah, Sweden. We had speakers from all over, and Juntos or juntos in Portuguese does mean together. So it's about coming together. It's an on-site event. It's about networking, coaching, mentoring, learning, benchmarking, face-to-face. It's not recorded and transmitted online. It's not a hybrid event. It was born out of disgust with the number of online events after the pandemic. And you don't need to know Spanish or Portuguese to attend.
My question is sure. How do you put together a program that, that meets the needs of such a diverse audience in terms of where they're coming from at this industry? Because you kind of have to have a critical mass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We did a call for papers and people put their names forward. And we got an amazing variety of speakers from something like 15 different countries. We had people talking about language access. We had that, which was particularly pertinent as the conference was just after the presidential executive orders in the United States about the English language coming first. We had presentations about interpreting, many different aspects of interpreting. There was a panel on interpreting. Dieter moderated it. We had a panel on women business leaders, which has always been very popular. We had another panel about the buyer side. We had people from Rotary International, Uber, Meta, Salesforce, and Korn Ferry, I believe, on that panel. So
they might have been Coupa as well on that one.
Yeah, not forgetting you. And we had an associations panel as well, in which Jose represented the Globalization and Localization Association, Gala. And we had people from the ALC, the Association of Language Companies in the United States, Karen Decker, the president. So there's a lot of different things on the menu. It's not, there's no theme to Vamos Juntos. Okay. You attend events and they say the theme for this event is such and such. There's no central theme other than coming together. Obviously, you're not going to go and talk about bricklaying at Vamos Juntos, but there was something for everyone in the program. We did get a couple of people say there was too much about interpreting, or why isn't there a men in
Who are
localization
those
panel
people?
Right.
instead of there being a
Dieter
women business
wants their
leaders panel?
names and addresses because he's
I
he's
want
got an
names.
issue.
I want to know who said that. I need
There,
to know.
there was some feedback, but you can't please everyone, but there is something for everyone in the program at Vamos Juntos. And we're going to be launching the call for papers for the next Vamos Juntos pretty soon.
All right, let's get to that. Let's get that in a second, but let's wrap up with the Vamos Juntos number 3, Mexico City first. I always judge events or seminars, webinars, whatever, in a couple of different ways. One is, do I make any meaningful, new relationships? Do I get any business? Or 2, do I learn something? And for me, I love going to events where I'm learning stuff. I hate sitting there though if I'm not learning something. If it's just blah 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 and I walk out, whatever. So, Jose, let me ask you. Put you on the spot here. Name one thing that is something that's a presentation or some advice or some kind of new information that really stood out and kind of made an impression on you.
Okay, well, that's a tricky one. A few came to mind. I was very fond of a presentation that Nora Diaz did, where she took the audience and she walked us through running the same experiment with, I think she picked 4, but there was up to 6 different flavors of Gen AI tools that are out there available to you. And she walked on different experiments and how each of them performed, what was good, what was bad, what were the limitations. And all of a sudden I found myself sitting in there. I had looked at all of those tools, but she had organized it in a way that I thought that it was so relevant, so timely, and so practical that the notes that you took from that and what I could use for this and that was just very, very relevant. But again, I have a big stake on AI. But I also, the original reason for me to go was to represent Gala.
Yeah.
So I did a lot. We did that session with the associations, and it triggered a lot of good conversations on how do we find a balance between what other organizations are doing and the important work that regional events like Juntos are going to have, right? And how we're catering to the same needs at maybe 2 different levels. That was at the beginning pretty much, and it gave me a really good framework to continue to have conversations with everyone. And admittedly, all throughout, I wanted to learn more about Mexico and the industry in Mexico, which I think is usually underrepresented in other parts of the world. So we got a lot of people from Mexico, not from Latin America. Latin America is also underrepresented, but they go to a lot of places. You can see them in the galas and the locals and things like that. But for the first time, or at least that was my perception, there was a lot of people from Mexico. So that also transpired everywhere. What is the reality of Mexico?
So first off, the presentation about the different types or different AI engines, to me, I want to watch it now. I want to see it because I love learning, and it's great when you can have somebody curate their experience and their knowledge to save you all the time and effort to go through and learn all that stuff. So that's awesome. And then I've had this question for years. It's I don't see, Mexico's a huge country. I don't know what the population is. It must be 60, 70 million. Where are the LSPs, at our industry events? And it's funny because Argentina is, punches way above its weight. And I think at Gala in San Diego a few years back, Argentina had the most people in attendance than any other country outside the U.S.
I was going to say 120 million, but it's actually 130 million.
130 million. Okay, my bad. So, but still, so where are the LSPs, man? Where's the? So I'm thinking, significant opportunities there. So agree with you, Dieter. I know also like to learn and you like to participate in the programs. But you're also quite social. So I've heard. I don't know. What was the social aspect like there? I mean, were you guys at a hotel restaurant, or did you guys go out and try different places every night? What was it like?
Well, Mark, the one thing I can assert in this
opened up a can of worms.
podcast is that I am acutely aware of all the social activities at any given conference at any given moment, and Vamos Juntos has never underdelivered there. I think Charles and the board at Vamos did a fantastic job once again of curating a series of events for people to attend and go see, that got us out of the hotel and into the city a little bit without being an onerous experience. Sometimes you go to some conferences and they're like, and an hour away is we're going to bus
and
you
there's,
there.
And there's no beer on the bus.
By the time you get there, and then and there's no beer on the bus. Big mistake. No, but there's always a good amount of I was at the event at Lima the year before, and that was an amazing experience. We saw a lot of cool parts of Lima, and the events were fantastic in very unique locations as well. And again, in Mexico, no exception to that rule. I want to say that for me, I mean, part of the reason that I attend Vamos Juntos is that previous to the existence of this conference, my understanding of the LATAM market was very, very lean. And this is a unique, you brought up the point that, where are the LSPs in Mexico? Well, they were at Vamos Juntos, which was fantastic because I got to spend some time talking to folks doing business in and around, in Mexico, and also servicing the US and North America market and beyond into Europe, which was really fantastic. There was representation, from Guatemala. There was representation clearly from Argentina. And so this is the one event on the calendar that really, if you care about, growth in the LATAM, Central South America and the Caribbean language industry, this is where everybody's going to be. And to me, that's a massive appeal.
Awesome. And we're going to talk about the next
Vamos to wherever
in a second here, Charles. But before we do that, I'm going to put Jose and Dieter on the spot again one more time. If you could have a takeaway and say to the organizers, hey, here's something that I'd like to see at a future event. And Dieter, I know you'd want more interpretation.
I was going to say more interpreting.
I think we need more stuff on virtual interpretation. No, but seriously, at a future event, what would you? Is there something that you'd like to request or like to see, Jose?
I actually found it pretty balanced. The fact that there was more interpreting than it usually is, it was a positive for me because I get so much of the other stuff. And again, I know that I'm supposed to, or everybody tries to associate one with one side of the business, but I care about everything in my function and whatever my next job will be, my next function will be. The best for me is to understand everything that is happening. Yeah. So I loved that all of a sudden I was having this market and interpreting has also leapfrog, in my opinion, when it comes to technology and therefore visibility and accessibility to the market. So I thought that it was very interesting. No, for me, it was actually pretty good. There was fewer customers, which make me a lot more protagonism, which is always great for my ego. No, but there was a lot of pragmatic things being discussed on a stage. I think that it was a good balance. There was practitioners, there were owners, there was associations. It might have been one of the most balanced events I've ever seen. So I wouldn't change that conversation.
You guys are so nice, and that's awesome.
The one thing I would say is okay, a lot of us, we come from the usual circuit. You have seen us speaking before. What I would like to see is newer faces, people who are, adjacent or that sometimes haven't got the spotlight. I would love to see that and less of the usual suspects, but it did work for that event.
I totally agree with you. One, it's nice to give new people kind of a voice or a chance to get up and talk, but it's also good to get different perspectives. Charles, why don't you talk about what's next for Vamos Juntos?
Sure. Well, the next Vamos Juntos conference is going to be held in Buenos Aires in Argentina. So it was a tough decision. We looked at Colombia and we looked at Argentina. And finally, what we did was we decided that 2026 would be in Argentina and 2027 would be in Colombia. The reason why is because 2 members of the board live in Argentina and we didn't have any Colombian board members at the time, so just a little bit trickier in terms of organizing. There are currently 6 people on the board of Vamos Juntos. I'm just one of them. and we're about to add a couple more board members. In fact, we still actually have the position open. So if anyone wants to be a board member, just reach out. So Buenos Aires was a very logical choice. I mean, we've been looking at Buenos Aires for a while. The thing about Buenos Aires is that there's such a lot of translation, interpreting, and localization activity that goes on there. Makes it a very natural choice. Of course, there's tango, there's barbecue, there's all sorts of different things that are going on in Buenos Aires. The number of theaters, the number of restaurants is just amazing. The architecture in parts looks like Paris. It's an amazing place that when you go onto the rooftop of a tall building like a hotel, you can normally see at least 3 large soccer stadiums. It is a very special place. But it's also a little further away. And so it's a longer flight. And so we looked at different things, and we're very cognizant of the fact that there have been other industry events in Buenos Aires. And when we did Rio de Janeiro, there had never been a significant industry event held in Rio de Janeiro for companies before. And neither had an event been organized of the nature of Vamos Juntos in Mexico City or in Lima. Whereas in Buenos Aires, there have been events. Buenos Aires is such a protagonist in the world language industry that so we had to put that on the table too, because we're looking to promote, showcase the countries where we have these events. So Colombia, for example, is going to be a fantastic destination in 2027. We just need a little bit more time to organize it. So for Buenos Aires, we're just about now to finalize the venue. We're just waiting to get the contract signed. We're also almost there with the keynote speaker. Just need her to revise that contract as well. And then we'll go and do the call for papers, and hopefully
what are the dates going to be?
March 14 and 15. Let me double check. 1 second. March 13 and 14.
Okay.
March
and then,
13 and 14, 2026.
Because I know with Argentina, it's such a north to south country. And Buenos Aires is up relatively north, but it's South America. Like, what's the climate like there in March?
So when you think about Argentina, Argentina is the same size as 20 countries in Europe. Like, we're talking Germany, France, Italy. You add them all up, and 20 of them equal Argentina. In that sense, it's similar to Ukraine, but it's just a north-south dynamic. It's a very long country. It's also wide, but it's mostly long. Okay, and the weather in Buenos Aires in March will be warm. So we're going to be talking anywhere between 28 to 36 degrees Celsius. So It's charming weather if you're coming from Canada or Scotland or Cincinnati, at that time of year. You're not going to see any snow. You could probably got to go to the pool at your hotel. You'll only need a light dinner jacket maybe for an evening event. So it's fantastic weather in that sense. And it's a big city. There's so much going on. So weather-wise, I think we're very lucky.
Awesome. What about access flights? If you're coming from North America or Europe, are there direct flights? And where from?
Oh, sure. Not all, but most of the major airlines of the world fly into Argentina. So like KLM, Lufthansa, Air France, Iberia in Europe, Emirates and Qatar from the Middle East. And then, of course, American Airlines, United, Copa Airlines. The LATAM also has very good connections. So it doesn't really matter where you're coming from, except Australia. If you're coming from Australia, well, you just go east over New Zealand and over the Pacific Ocean. You would be probably flying LATAM, and that will be a long flight, Dieter, but we'll see you there. It's a longer flight. we're in the globalization industry. We have to be global. We can't chicken out just because we have to take a long flight.
Everything is at least 10 hours from where I live. So I don't even, it's funny when I'm in North America and I have to do LA to New York and I hear people whinging about it. Like, oh, we need a 5-hour flight. I just want to like smack them, It's like,
yeah,
I get that all the time, Dieter. I get people who say to me, oh, you flew up from Latin America. Was it like a 4-hour flight? It's like, no, it was longer than 4 hours. But anyway, Buenos Aires is easy to get to. There's a lot going on, and it's been a very long time since an international event was organized in Buenos Aires. I think Lock World did a mini Lock World in Argentina about 15 years ago. So it's exciting, and it's not the same old, same old. Argentina has so much going on in this industry as well. It's like almost everybody seems to work with an Argentinian. It's amazing. They're everywhere.
That's awesome. Hey, let me ask you guys, because you guys are all really well traveled, and when we go to business events, the companies help pay our way. But then, like Jose, it sounds like you spent some extra time in Mexico City, and typically you're paying on your own dime, and so I don't know about you guys, but I tend to be kind of cost conscious. I don't know where. And like, you talked about Tokyo right now with the exchange rate is awesome. Which is, nobody said that since like the early 70s. Right. But it is just a great place to go if you're into skiing, food, whatever. What were the prices like in Mexico City off-site, just going out for dinner and stuff like that? And then Charles, you can talk about Argentina, but Dieter, or let's Jose, what were your impressions in terms of prices in Mexico City?
So there was like two speeds going on. If you just like went around the amazing neighborhood where the hotels are and where the most of like the international events will happen, that had like affordable, but it's still like, as an American, I do see those prices very often. So it was affordable. And then, it could be a little bit pricey for some other people, but given the quality of everything, it was just right.
Yeah.
And there was so much offer. But then if you step a short cab ride or walk a little bit farther, you got into really cheap and really affordable. Where like an amazing meal at one of the best places that I was like $20, and you got like top notch. And you could go to a Michelin star restaurant if that's something that you're into, and pay $140 as opposed to for something that in the US would have been north of $700.
Wow.
That is how mind blowing it was if you're a foodie like myself.
What about tips in Mexico? Do you tip?
I do tip because I'm in the wrong habit, but I identify as a Spaniard in most places where I go. You don't have to. Okay. You don't have to tip.
And so you just do like 10% or something like that. Not outrageous like it is in the US where they're starting at 18 and going up to.
Correct. Yeah. I think that you tip for service, and also because like the currency exchange is really so much in your favor that if they treat you well, I would say in my experience, it was like 98% of the time I was treated really, really well. You tip for the service, not out of habit. Yeah. I would not.
That's awesome.
I'm not a big fan of that. But also, it's worth saying, cultural. Like access to museums, access to experiences, tours, things like that. Everything was incredibly affordable, like very well priced.
That's so good to hear, because like in the US right now, things are so expensive. And if you've got a family and you want to take them to, the sites and I mean, just I'm looking at the Space Needle here, and it's like $40 a person. So, and that's like a 1 hour thing. You go up there, you look around, and it's like, how do you do that?
And the closer you get to the real Mexican experience, the cheaper things get. It depends on like where your comfort sits and what you expect. Do you want to go to fancy restaurants that look better than anything that I have in San Francisco? Well, then you're going to pay a little bit more. Yeah. You want to go where like people are like having tacos at 1 a.m. in the morning, and it looks like an oversized food truck, which might be the best meal that you're going to have. Well, then expect to pay $1 per taco or $2 per taco.
Awesome.
It is something different.
Charles, what are the prices like in Buenos Aires, and also walk us through the customs for tipping and things like that?
Well, in Argentina, you tip for service. It's not obligatory like it is in the US. Like if you don't get good service, then you don't tip. I normally tip. And just like Jose said, you're getting a good deal. So you feel like the tipping is appropriate. Obviously, if the service is poor, then you don't tip. Now, in terms of Argentina, flip-flops a lot in terms of just how pricey or how affordable it is. And Argentinians are very loud on this topic. You'll hear them at events complaining about inflation or devaluation or revaluation or whatever. Argentina is not structurally an affordable country. It has a labor system sort of like France and lots of public holidays. So people who run companies in Argentina sometimes struggle with prices and fluctuating costs. But as a tourist, it's very affordable to eat out. It's very affordable to go to the theater. You're not going to pay $40 for a 1 hour visit to some place like you might in Seattle. There's a lot going on, and there's a huge number of things that are outright free in terms of architecture, theaters, monuments. It's a really culturally wealthy destination, Buenos Aires. I mean, there's music, rock concerts, sports, theater, dance, especially tango. There's a lot of options. In terms of hotels, I mean, you can stay at the Hilton for $350, or you can stay at the Holiday Inn for $130, and there's Airbnbs, all different price ranges. So I don't think anyone would be put off by the prices. But as Mark said, prices go up and down. When I was growing up, Japan was associated with being like the most expensive real estate in the world. And now it's relatively affordable. It's amazing how things change. Argentina is one of those countries that changes all the time, right? It changes all the time. And then you come back 10 years later and it seems exactly the same. It's a weird way that this country has of changing but not changing. But in terms of eating out and hotels and music and I mean, I went to the Teatro Colón, which is like the Met in New York, I guess, 120-year-old theater, and saw Puccini opera 2 weeks ago when I was in Buenos Aires scouting out the venues, and it cost me $15. Okay, I was near the roof where the pigeons would have been once upon a time, but $15 to see opera, I mean, that was a great deal.
That's amazing. Well, you've got me excited about Vamos Juntos 2026, and then 2027 is already going to be. You've already planned it's going to be in Colombia. I may be somewhere in that neighborhood on my sailboat, so maybe I'll come in and crash the party. But hey, gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on memoQ Talks. Charles, you and your fellow organizers of Vamos Juntos, hats off to you guys for creating something new that the industry needed. And it just takes, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and, but somebody's got to, step up and do it. And you guys have done that. So thanks for that. Any parting thoughts, comments, anything that you'd like to say, to kind of wrap this up?
Well, listen, I mean, once again, I just want to extend to anybody thinking about attending Vamos. It is a unique opportunity to connect with folks doing business in the region and beyond in the LATAM, markets. It is a really great cross section of well represented topics across the spectrum of the things that we talk about in the language industry. I think Charles and team have done a great job of making sure that there's stuff for the buy side, there's stuff for LSPs, there's stuff for LSPs of any size. There's great talks, with associations. And, as a tech vendor, it was great. I mean, I thought it was, well balanced in terms of service side, technology side, association side, all of that. And the locations are phenomenal. And they're, as Charles talked about earlier, they're in locations that haven't traditionally been places where folks have had conferences. So it's a great opportunity, folks, to really explore a new city, a new country, and really sample the culture and the food and the lifestyle that exists in these fantastic locations. So,
awesome.
I give the big blue seal of approval, whatever that is.
5 stars. But, Jose, any kind of parting thoughts?
Yeah. It had the event in Mexico City had like an amazing energy. It is hard to get that kind of like energy going for an event. That alone made it, and the social aspect of it, the meeting people that you didn't know or that usually you don't run into at other events, that had a lot of value. But I think that also from a business standpoint, it was very important, and it will be next year, and it will be the year after, to bring myself, and I invite everyone to try and do the same thing. Bring yourself into the reality of Latin America and the Caribbean as a massive, big opportunity, as a market that we might not understand really, really well. We cannot even tell how big Argentina is, right? So it does get you closer to that reality. And I think that has an impact in how well you can do business. So I do see it as it's going to be fun because of the nature of the event and the people running it and the people attending it. But it is a great learning opportunity if you are like myself, not super on top of reality of the market every single day. I really think that people should invest in spending time with a nucleus as important as Latin America and the Caribbean. It's also like, it's a very big market.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, doing it for Florida so that you can like dominate the market in Florida, which I'm sure that's pretty appealing to some people. But this is a massive, part of the world that you get to know a lot better and connect with locals.
That's awesome. And it's, you're touching on a point a couple times now, because we talked about the market in Mexico from the LSP side, but it's interesting because I hear about a lot of supply and production of resources in South America, especially Argentina. Don't hear a lot about the market opportunities in those different markets. And I'm maybe at Vamos Juntos you address that a little more, but you're talking about one of the fastest growing markets in the world, and it's huge and it's diverse. It's not just Spanish. You do have that whole Brazil thing, right? But Portuguese.
There is something that happened organically, which was like people approaching you as like, well, you do go to a lot of places and your company works with a lot of different places. And people wanted to have an exchange of what their problems are, what the new services they want to offer, what are you looking for? And it turned out that it was a conversation I did not anticipate. A lot of people they also know the reality. They don't know what you might be doing outside of LATAM, for instance. Mm-hmm. And then that exchange of ideas was organic, and it was like really genius because people left with what I could bring into the conversation, and I learned about the reality of what they can do, what they cannot do, and what ideas they're like playing with. So great luggage to bring back home.
Awesome. Last question, Charles. How many people were at Vamos Juntos Mexico?
So there were 140 people, which was almost exactly the same as what we had in Lima.
Okay.
In Lima, we had 145.
What's interesting is sometimes I feel like the small to medium-sized events like that are almost better than like huge events where you can get lost in the crowd. At 140 people after 2 days, and then you have the pre-events, post-events, you're going to make it's almost more conducive in my experience to making real relationships, both business and, professional relationships and personal relationships. So I think that's like the sweet spot there. Of course, you'll probably get bigger as you go. Charles, last closing comments from you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Oh, we're certainly expecting more people in Buenos Aires just because of the size of the localization, interpreting, and translation community. But it's going to be a great event. As I said, we're about to finalize the keynote and the venue, and then we're going to go for the call for papers. We are hoping for fresh new speakers. We may let Dieter speak again. Who knows? Anyway,
more
it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Latin America is a fun place. Latin Americans know how to party. The music starts. You always have a rooftop event. In Lima, it was a rooftop event with a sea view. In Mexico City, we had a full moon and an earthquake and an eclipse, all during our rooftop events. It was a lot of fun. We had tango dancers to announce the Buenos Aires venue. So it was a lot of fun. And Mark,
Awesome.
yes, you will meet new people, and you will experience a destination that is not the same old, same old. And there will be a very rich diversity of topics. There'll be something for everybody. So yeah,
Awesome.
very exciting.
And do you think some of those Latin American party people can teach poor Dieter how to, like, bust a move a little bit?
I've been hoping.
You got to come out of his shell, man.
I was impressed by Charles' ability to coordinate that eclipse, though. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
good
I
job.
had to dial
Well,
someone important for that one.
Yeah, you just need to know who to, talk to the right people. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. This was our third attempt at recording this, and I finally got my act together. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for coming on memoQ Talks.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.